Hello and welcome back to Seconds Out. My name is Ayman Khan. Good to be speaking to Kevin Lerena as well as some options appear on the table for him. Kevin, great to be speaking to you. How's life?
All good here in South Africa. Everything's going well.
Great to hear. Let's take a little bit of a look back on the experience in Saudi. It was good to see you over there, and you gave up a real spirited effort considering everything that was going on, and you won the hearts of a lot of fans, even in defeat there. Do you take a lot from that, even though it wasn't the way you wanted the week to unfold?
Yeah, most definitely. Obviously, through adversity comes great strength, and there's no such thing as good timing when it comes to someone's death. But I learned a lot from it. Going back to the fight, obviously it was a very close fight. I watched it back a couple of times, and I thought it was a lot closer than the judges gave it. But no credit to Justice Hooney. He boxed well on the evening, and I've never been a sore loser in my life. We just moved forward, and I gave a big effort considering the circumstances I was faced with, and I almost got him out of there multiple times. And obviously in the 10th round, for everyone to see, was a nail biter. So an exciting fight it was, and I learned a lot. But obviously there's a lot that I think I would have done different if the circumstances were different.
Mhm. Fair enough. When you say that you watched it quite a bit, how much have you dissected of the fight, and how much do you feel you had more to give, considering the way you came on so strong?
Look, obviously, with the circumstances, I was very emotionally drained. So
Mhm.
naturally, physically, I didn't have what I'd always have. Look, when I had him hurt, I gave it my all. Especially in the 10th round, I rocked him. I rocked Justice, and credit to him, he stayed up. But I gave it my all. I mean, if you looked and you watched the film, I threw the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
But I was spent myself. I had no energy. Watching it back, I do feel he was very active, but a lot of his shots weren't landing. And I believe I landed the more effective shots, the shots that, the power shots, to call it. It was a close fight. I think it was a close fight, 96-94 maybe. I think I had it, if I scored it objectively, a draw. But they had it to him 96-94. The score that was 99-91 was totally disgusting, absurd actually. But it is what it is. Like I said, I caught Justice on the chin. He wobbled, his legs gave in, but he stayed up, and he showed a lot of heart himself. I think we both showed a lot of heart in that fight, and no excuses. I don't make excuses. I've got big things coming, and exciting. Yes, I'm always in an exciting fight. I mean, you saw my fight with Daniel Dubois, who's come on and he's done really well. He did well against Usyk, well against Miller, and very well against Hrgovic. So Daniel Dubois is doing great things. So it's just testament to show that the heavyweight division is very open, and it's just about opportunity and sometimes a bit of luck going your way.
Well, speaking of opportunities, you've set your sights on the Bridgeweight division and Lawrence Okolie after you picked up the WBC Bridgeweight title, defeating Lucas Ryazanski resoundingly over in Poland. Is that the high in your priority list, number one, a fight with Lawrence Okolie?
Of course, it's obviously his mandatory. It's been ordered by the WBC. So Lawrence is a good fighter. He had a phenomenal win over Rosansky got caught, but I kind of expected that, to be honest. I was backing Lawrence for that fight. I mean, the Polish guy, he's got a phenomenal KO ratio. It's clear that he can bang, but you got to really look at who's he knocked out. And Lawrence fought a phenomenal fight. And obviously, me and Lawrence, we're friends out of the ring, but this is business. And if our paths need to cross, they're going to cross. And I'm all for it. So yeah, that's pretty much what I think's next. Obviously, I don't know what Lawrence is doing. He's also going to obviously have some options to go up and dabble at heavyweight because he's also a big guy. And but he's the current Bridgeweight champion. So as it stands right now, I'm set to fight Lawrence Okolie. But having said that, I don't know what Lawrence is going to do. He might want a big fight at heavyweight, which I also understand.
Keeping on the theme of Lawrence, how much do you feel a blueprint was written as to how to fight and beat Lawrence in his match against Chris Smith? Would you look to emulate some of that, or would you do it a different way if you do fight in the ring?
No, I think they're two totally different fights because the fight with Chris Smith was a very drained Lawrence Okolie. Not to take any credit away from the victory that Chris, he put on a great performance, but I don't think Lawrence, like myself, was a natural cruiserweight. And if they fought 10 times, maybe Chris would win 4 or 5 times out of those 10 times, and Lawrence would win 5 times. So it's one of those fights where you can't really say the blueprint to beat Lawrence is by doing what Chris did. It's 2 different weight divisions. Obviously, walking around at 100 and fighting at 100, you're stronger. You at your natural weight, so you don't have to drain yourself to make weight. You're not going to sacrifice on power. So they're 2 very different fights. What you can take out is try and look at the mistakes and the flaws that Lawrence made. Obviously, you couldn't take much out of the Rosinski fight because it was so short.
Yeah.
And credit to Lawrence, he did the job and he did what he needed to do. So if you had to look back at his other fights, say, okay, he makes this mistake, he makes that mistake. But having said that, that is at cruiserweight, not his natural weight. So they're 2 totally different fights. I mean, me and Lawrence were meant to fight at cruiserweight a couple of years ago when I was the IBO cruiserweight world champion. The fight never materialized, but they're 2 different fights now. Us at cruiserweight and us at bridgerweight/heavyweight are 2 different fighters at the moment.
One of those parts of Lawrence's game is what he's been working on and has been part of the reason as to his move to Joe Gallagher now from Sugar Hill and previously from Shane McGuigan is to deal with some of the holding and, you know, battle against that. He tried to implement that, of course, against Rosinski, but there isn't much of a sample size to go off of because it was such a short fight. But is that a worry for you? Like, if you were to face him, how often he stifles his opponents by holding?
No, it suits me. Obviously, you know, if a guy wants to hold, being the smaller guy, it plays into my hands. But also, having said that, I'm a type of guy, I enjoy the guy throwing punches. I enjoy the excitement of a fight and not the holding. So it doesn't really faze me, to be honest. It is what it is. I mean, if he was doing that at cruiserweight and he's not doing that now, like I said, 2 different fighters. You're looking at a guy who was not a natural cruiserweight. He's fighting in his natural weight now. You're going to get a different fighter. And the same goes for me. I'm not the same fighter I was when I was fighting cruiserweight.
Where would you like that fight to take place? Would you come to the UK for that fight again?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll definitely come to the UK. I mean, it all depends on which promoter wants to put the fight on. Well, obviously Lawrence has got his team and I've got options that have been given to me. But I'd love to come to the UK. I mean, a fight like that, technically it's 2 heavyweights having a scrap and a good scrap. 2 former cruiserweight world champions now fighting for a bridgerweight world title. Obviously, the bridgerweight world title still got to gain a lot of traction, but the belt is all about who's fighting for it. I mean, the belt would be a whole lot bigger if somebody said Alexander Usyk's fighting for it or Deontay Wilder's fighting for it. But me and Okolie are big names in our own right, and it makes it an exciting fight. So that's a fight that could take place in the UK. Who knows? Possibly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia too. I think 2 big guys. You know, it's always going to be exciting. I mean, Lawrence showed in his last fight, he's got tremendous power to knock the guys out. I've showed that I've got the grit and the power to hurt guys at any given time. So it makes an exciting fight. So I don't think it would be difficult to put it on wherever it's going to be.
Is that number 1 on your priority list? Have you had any other offers since, either at Bridgeweight, heavyweight, or elsewhere?
Obviously, I've just been riding it out at the moment because I just obviously came off that close Rooney loss, and obviously I went up to heavyweight and I never lost my position at the WBC because I got special permission not to fight 2 fights at heavyweight, so I never lost my bridgeweight ranking. So I knew that something would come of it. You know, obviously had I beaten Rooney or had I knocked him out in the 10th round when he was hurt, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here going, well, I'm going to go fight bridgeweight now. I perhaps would have fought a very well-known heavyweight thereafter. But it is what it is, you know. This is the position and the opportunity I got. I gave a good count of myself. You know, it was an exciting fight. It wasn't a one-sided fight. It was a fight where one stage people were going, well, it's really close. And then at the end of the fight, people were going, Lerena's going to finish him. So, yeah, whatever opportunities come, obviously the Lawrence Okolie, I've been waiting on that because I'm mandatory and I knew that Lawrence kind of jumped the queue. But he jumped the queue rightfully so because I went up to fight at heavyweight, so I had another opportunity. So he went ahead and I fought Rosinski. He won, and now it's my turn to face him. something we're both open to. Me and Lawrence are both open to fighting one another. But if there's heavyweight offers that are going around that are lucrative and worth both of our while, then most definitely. But I do think, for me, winning the WBC Bridgerweight World title, not the interim, the actual belt, is a good, I wouldn't say stepping stone, but it's a good gateway to bigger fights, whether they are at Bridgerweight or at heavyweight.
Kevin, whatever the option is you take, there are a lot of people waiting for your next step, and I certainly am one of them. Whilst you're still here, I'd just like to get your take on some of the things in the wider boxing sphere. First of all, former opponent Daniel Dubois looking really impressive, as you mentioned before in this interview, and he got the win over Filip Hrgovic, which a lot of people weren't predicting.
I predicted it, to be honest. I mean, I gave my predictions, and the only fight that I wasn't sure of on the night, because I don't know the opponent, was Nick Ball's opponent. I said it's a 50-50 fight. I don't really know. I haven't watched the guy he fought, but I know Nick Ball's a machine. He's a phenomenal fighter. He fought on the same card as me. So I just said that fight, I'm not sure which way to lean. I was leaning towards Nick Ball, Queensbury. But in terms of Daniel and Filip Hrgovic, I said sparring's not a fight. Daniel has had a lot harder fights in the last 4 or 5 fights, I think, than Filip has had. He's been quite active. I mean, he fought me, a fight that he found himself on his ass. He got back up to win. He then fought Usyk in a fight where many think he did win, and others thought he showed a lot of grit until he got stopped. Then he came back, smashed Baby Miller, and I think was riding the crest of a wave of confidence. So and Daniel's a strong guy, so it was no surprise to me that he won. I think good for him. You know, a lot of people wrote him off, and boxing just shows you, don't write a man off. You know, don't ever do that. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest lesson many can learn out of that is don't write somebody off, ever.
Very well said. What are his prospects of success, though, against Anthony Joshua, if that indeed is the next fight for him?
Well, it's a mega fight. And obviously, AJ's a household name in the UK, been flying the flag for a very long time. Obviously, him and Tyson Fury, the 2 biggest heavyweights in the world, been flying the flag high. It's a big fight for Dan, and it's a big step up. If you look at AJ's last win, yes, it was against Francis Ngannou, who wasn't a boxer, but he's still a combat athlete, former UFC heavyweight champion. And AJ really laid him out, you know. No disrespect intended, but he showed him what's boxing, heavyweight boxing all about. So AJ's got that ferocious power to stop anybody in their tracks. And so does Daniel Dubois. So it makes for a really good fight. I think that fight is a fight where he who lands first and he who has the authority from the get-go is the one who will win. They both got power. It's obvious. It's obvious they're heavyweights. They're both big men. Obviously, Anthony Joshua has been in much, much bigger fights in the sense of he's fought the best, he's lost to the best, and he's come back and in a great way, in phenomenal fashion. So you got to say to yourself, who's taking the experience into the fight? Anthony Joshua. Who's taking youth into the fight? Daniel Dubois. Who's taking power into the fight? The both of them. And don't talk about who's taking chin into the fight, because this is heavyweight boxing. It takes one shot and the fight's over. So an exciting fight for both guys. And if that fight is made, if AJ and Dubois' team are able to make that fight, good luck to both of them. It's a massive fight. They say September in Wembley. Good luck to both of them. It's may the best man win, but could go either way. But I'm going to say it's a hard fight for Daniel Dubois. Anthony Joshua is just as confident and he's very locked in. And I think his new trainer, Ben Davidson, is doing the world of good for him. But you can say the same about Daniel. Since he's changed trainers, it's kind of seen a different Daniel Dubois, a different demeanor. So you got to always be objective. It makes for a very good fight. Sitting on the fence for that one.
No problem. Understood. It was a good breakdown. There's now a lot of conversation, though, off of the back of that in the heavyweight division as well, too, but with the status of Deontay Wilder off of the back of the defeat to Zhilei Zhang. And a lot of people are kind of calling for Wilder. It's his own decision to make, but to potentially hang up the gloves, considering the way that last fight went and maybe the Bronze Bomber not being there like he used to be. How do you feel about what you saw last weekend?
It's very hard to say. I think obviously Deontay came off a loss to Joe Parker, where he didn't look himself. But then he stepped in on Saturday night against Zhilei Zhang, and I wouldn't say kind of unexpected, but he got knocked out where many people maybe thought he would do the knocking out, because he is the bronze bomber with the highest KO ratio in heavyweight boxing. Is it the end of the road for him? I don't know. That's for him to decide. It's very hard because boxing is a cutthroat sport where people lose. In Deontay's case, he lost badly, and people say, well, he must hang up his gloves. It's not the same guy. But in the same light, if you put it into perspective, Zhang can bang. Excuse the pun. He can bang and he can hit. I mean, it's obvious. Look what he did to Joe Joyce. I mean, he dropped Joe Parker. Joe Parker did really well to stick to the game plan and come back and get the victory on points. But he can bang. So you say to yourself, maybe Deontay wasn't looking good. Did he get caught? And that was it. It's over. We allude back to the thing and saying heavyweight boxing. Anybody can win. But maybe Deontay Wilder's had a lot of big fights, hard fights with Tyson Fury that's taken a lot out of him. Maybe he is not the same. Or maybe he is on the decline. But I wouldn't know, because obviously I wasn't in there ever with Deontay Wilder when he fought Tyson, and I wasn't in there with him on Saturday night. But I got a lot of respect for him. And let me tell you why I got a lot of respect for Deontay Wilder. I heard that Deontay Wilder started boxing to provide for his daughter who has special needs or something like that. And for me, no matter what people say, I respect that, because he went on to become the heavyweight champion, one of the highest KO ratios in the sport, a long-time WBC world champion. I respect him for what he's done for the sport of boxing, but more than the sport of boxing, what he's done for his child. I'm a father too, and if I had to put myself in Deontay's shoes, you got to respect the man. So whether he chooses to retire or not, that's not up to me. That's not up to the pundits. That's not up to the media. Media can crucify you and put you away. But had Deontay Wilder knocked out Zhilei Zhang in bronze bomber fashion, well, they'd say Deontay Wilder's back. Who's next? AJ. Wow. That's the world of boxing. It's cutthroat. So it's very hard to say. So obviously only he will know that. Only Deontay will know if he's got anything left.
Very, very lastly, we saw as well a couple of weeks back the undisputed heavyweight crown was contested for Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, and it was Usyk that came through with the accolade of undisputed. The rematch is now set towards the end of the year, December 21st. First of all, are you expecting a call maybe to be brought into either of the training camps, maybe more so Tyson Fury? And what do you expect to happen in the rematch off the back of the first one?
Yeah, of course. I'll definitely jump to help Tyson again. Tyson and his team really looked after me the first time I helped them, and it was a great fight. I mean, it was a very close fight. Obviously, I was there ringside watching, and I was just grateful to be there and to be able to watch a fight of that magnitude. The new undisputed champion was crowned. Alexander Usyk's a phenomenal fighter. Phenomenal. Tyson Fury did a lot of good stuff in the fight. He looked at one point where we got to the middle rounds. I thought, well, this is a Tyson Fury fight. He's handling his business. He's landing Alexander Usyk. He looks too big. But boom, Usyk turned it around from the middle rounds on. And obviously round 9 was a telling round for Alexander Usyk. And credit to him, because one thing about Alexander Usyk, besides the fact that he's a phenomenal fighter and a very skilled fighter, Tyson is also phenomenal and very skilled. But Alexander Usyk always finds a way to win. That's one thing you got to say about him. When he fought AJ, it wasn't an easy night, especially in the second fight. AJ stepped on him. I think it was also around 7 or 8 or 9, and if I remember correctly, and he didn't like it, but he found a way to overcome. Yeah, Alexander Usyk is a good fighter and arguably the greatest of our era, but can Tyson Fury beat him? 100% he can. We saw Tyson Fury had great moments in the fight. And obviously Tyson will go back to the board and see what he needs to change. He'll go back to the drawing board and say, I need to change this, I need to change that, I need to work on this, or I need to do this better. So he's a phenomenal fighter too, This is heavyweight. It's a heavyweight game, and I think too many people are fixated on the O. If you look at all the greats, most of their O's were gone, especially in the heavyweights. that shows you how the landscape of heavyweight boxing can always change. So if you're asking me what I think of the second fight, would I help Tyson? Most definitely. I'd love to get in camp with him and help him because they've been very good to me. Do I think he can win? 100%. I think he can win. Obviously, if he changes a few things and does a few things different, but at the end of the day, he's got a team, he's got a head trainer, and they'll formulate that game plan for him. But back to the first fight, it was a great fight. You couldn't have said it was a stinker, it was boring, it was an exciting fight until the very end. And I think that's the biggest thing, because sometimes fights that are built up with such hype can turn out to be stinkers or boring fights and not crowd friendly. But that really was. So credit to both Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury.
And a credit to you as well, Kevin, too. I knew it'd be a good conversation speaking to you. I'm looking forward to hearing more news about you and news about your return to the ring, whatever the option is you take. Thank you so much for speaking to Seconds Out. And when you get that news, we'll speak very soon.
Cheers, brother. Take care, and thanks for having me on the channel.